Welcome everybody. Today I'd like to show you a little tutorial on how to do a special effect in ProStyler theme using of course Microthemer as always. So this tutorial is about how to turn a page like that. This is a custom page by the way, not using the skeleton theme, but I can do so as well. So this is a pretty regular page, let's say it like that. So I'd like to show you how to turn that page into something like that with that kind of slice or skewed effect, just as the name implies. So here we go, we have another box here, and finally the footer, which has that same kind of look effect. So first of all, let me give you a little background of why I came to that effect here. So one of my developer or designer wanted to do design for a company, and we went with that theme here, which I already showed her. But that theme, I realized after a while that it was $45, but only for one license, for only one single site. I have bought that theme about a half a year ago. Never used it. And so she wanted to use this one, and we built this site with this one, which gave us this site here, which is not too bad. Sorry, it's in French, but it's not too bad. But it was based on that one. But the theme itself was pretty hard to work with, not to say the least. So the problem is that the client liked it, and they have many different sites that they want to build. So they want to build another one with a similar layout, let's say it like that. So that means that we need to pay another $45 because it was only for one domain. So we might have to buy it over and over again. So, of course, as you can see, $45. You probably already know that ProStyler, for the same personal license, we have $67, but for a developer license, which you need if you want to build a website for clients, it's $97. So that's about the price of two sites, just like we have here. So I went and tried to convince the client to do it a different way by using the ProStyler instead of buying the other one again. So I went and looked how it was built and decided to create the same special effect directly inside of ProStyler. So let me show you how we can do that. First of all, let's analyze how this one was built. So I'm gonna go to take a look at the code with you. So that first section here, as you can see, we have a border, an element here. I'm going to simply come here and just change something temporary so I can show you easily how this is done. So I'm going to put a background color temporarily, RGBA. Let's say red with 0.5, so a little bit transparency so we can see well how this is built. I'm going to remove that background color that it has on the object itself, and now you can see that in fact it's just one band. Okay, as you can see it at the top here. So we have many of them. Sorry, I will need to deactivate the color that overwrites it so that we can see that red color just like with the other one, and same thing at the bottom here. Gonna just deactivate those background colors so you can see that first of all I'm gonna deactivate everything except the background color. So first thing, as you can see, it's only one one band here, just a regular row that I used in ProStyler with a background color. In this case it was a white one, of course, if I enable that back. But I just wanted to show you that sorry, it's one row below the other content. And this is for the effect at the top where we just have an effect after the header itself. Okay. Now what we do, we need to put a certain amount of padding on it just to make sure that it has a certain dimension, a certain height, because there's no content inside of it. And we decided on 60 based on the other theme, but the reason for that is for regular screen resolution of around 1920 by 1080p. Of course, you can put a higher value if you have a larger screen, if you want to target larger screens. But remember that the more amount that you will put, the bigger the space here will be. Okay, so you need to be aware of that. Once that is done, we need to move that a little bit higher. So this will be the background that we see. That will be the cut, in other words, in a certain way. So this is just in fact a band that is on top of the other. So we need to move up. We have skew after and skew before, depending on if we are before the element or after. So in the case of the header, it's only after. In the case of that blue box here, it's before and after. And in the case of the footer, we don't want one here, so it's only before. So we have those here. So we need to move that up a little bit, because of course we're going to turn that. We're going to do a rotation, so we need to have one on the both space, on the top element and on the bottom element. You'll see why when we start turning that. So depending on if it's after, it will be a margin top. If it's skew before, it will be a margin bottom instead. And then we need to put a certain amount of index on it. So let's see, for example, this one is pretty obvious because when an element comes after the other one, it will be always on top. So this one is pretty automatic, but it will not be the case here for this one, for example. So if I go here, put a margin bottom, as you can see, it is cut in two because that element is on top of the other one. So to prevent things like that, we need to use what we call a z-index, which is kind of a little bit like layers in Photoshop, where we have one on top of the other. So the higher the z-index value, the higher on the top it will be, the more on the top it will be. So a value of 1 or 2 could be enough in this case, but of course if we have multiple elements, we can put a bigger number. So in this case I went with 50, but sometimes you might want to go with a higher number, just depends on you. So that way we know that it's always on top. And now where the magic begins is simply that CSS3 element here, which is called transform, where we do a rotation, in this case of minus 3.2 degrees, again based on the previous theme. So by doing that, as you can see, it rotates simply my row. Okay, and then we'll create the effect of the row being cut like that one. So now if I remove that background color and I bring back the color that we had, as you can see, it creates the effect of it being cut. Okay, background color here depends on the background color of the element itself, so I put blue there. Of course, for the first one here at the top, I chose white instead because the background here is white, and so on. Same thing for the footer here. I use the blue background color because the footer itself is blue. Alright, so sorry, not the right one here, this one. So it creates the same effect like that. And reactivating this one as well. So now let's see how to do that from scratch using Microthemer. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to first of all put some on header and footer directly because I don't want to have to do that on each and every page. So let's open that header here. And I'm going to add a new row. And I don't need to insert any element in that row, but I do need to come to the edit row part here. And in the previous example, I had a padding on top and bottom on each and every row that I needed that. I'm going to change that to put it directly on the in the CSS itself, so we don't have to do it over and over again on each and every element. So first of all, it needs to take the entire width, so I'm going to put full box content. And depending on whether we want to have a background color, so in my case I want to have a solid color, which is the white one, and that will be alright. I don't want any padding on each side, but I do want padding on top and bottom, but like I said, I'm going to do that directly in CSS instead. So I'm going to put here everything at 0. But the most important part here is I need to add a class to it. A class so I can reuse it on many times on the page. So this is a class that I created. Right now it will not do anything because of course I first need to create the CSS that goes with it. So in this case I'm going to put the class Skew after, because it will be after the element itself, which is in this case the header. So I'm going to click save and save that page. And I'm going to go do the same thing with my footer. Right now it will not change anything, of course, because I didn't create the CSS that goes with it. So footer had a new row. In this case it's going to be on the top, so I need to move that twice in my case. Edit that row. Full box content with a background color of solid color. In this case I have a footer blue, so I'm going to change that solid color here for that same blue, which is my primary color. Again, remove all the padding all around it, and in this case it's going to be Skew before underscore before. Forgot to no, okay, sorry, the height is alright. So I'm going to click save there and save the page. So this row, and same thing for the header, is the full width. These are set to the same thing here because I want the blue color to be from left to right of the page. So this is the case for this one, and the same thing for the other one under. Now if I go back to my overall page, my Skew page here, I'm going to edit this one. What I have here is my header, so this is done with a custom layout. We just use the page embed and add the header page there, and same thing for the footer at the bottom. So they already have the right row for the Skew effect. And if I want to add the same thing for the gallery element here, I will need to do that manually. Okay, not the gallery, but after the gallery, sorry, for the flip boxes. So, okay, sorry, so I had a new row. Then I'm going to move that a couple of way up before my flip box row. Again, I'm going to edit that row. So just like for the header and footer, I'm going to set that row to be full width. And since this one will have a blue background as well for the flip boxes, as you can recall here. So I'm going to do the same thing for this Skew. I'm going to use a solid color, and it will be the blue one. Again, I'm going to remove all the padding that are there by default and give it a class of Skew before. So this will be the Skew effect that will be before our boxes. And I'm going to add another one for the effect after the boxes. So another row, move that up twice in this case, edit that row, full box, background solid color and my blue color. remove all the padding, and give it a class of Skew underscore after. So again, all these classes have nothing inside of them so far. So if I save the page and then reload that in my browser, of course there will be no difference, because now I have set all the rows with their padding, with their class. They all have a padding of 0 for now, so they don't take up any space. Okay, if I show them, well, if I try to show them, it's going to be really hard because they don't take any space. As you can see, they're pretty small. So these are my rows with a padding of bottom, top and bottom of 0. So now let's use Microthemer to be able to edit all of those. So I'm going to open my Microthemer. And inside of it, I've already set my preference to go directly to that page. So that's why it loads that page. Now, I'm going to double click here to, of course, it's going to be hard to double click directly on the element since it's not there. So in my inspector, I will try to find the right element. So I'm going to move that up. I should be that level. I'm going to move up again, and as you can see now I can move to the right. So let's move down, and I see my little blue line that tells me on the right spot. So then I'm going to move down until I see my Skew after here. So this is what I want. I'm going to edit this one though. You can leave the div if you want to or not. I'm going to remove it. Just be sure that you don't remove the dot, by the way. And I'm going to add to it dot Skew underscore before, comma, optional space. So I'm going to target, in other words, both the Skew before and Skew after at the same time. I'm going to do a name for that. I'm going to call that Skew. And I'm going to put that into content and create a selector. So now what I need to do, first of all, in that class is to put those padding, top and bottom padding on those elements. So it's common both to the before and after. So I'm going to go here to the padding. I'm going to set a padding top of 60. I'm going to put that in pixel by default in Microthemer. You don't need to specify it. Of course, it has pushed the content because right now it is there. If I wanted to change, for example, the background color, so I see what really happens. As you can see, there it is. Okay. So now let's move the element. No, don't move the element right now. Sorry. Let's go with the Z index, because we mentioned that we need to change that. It's in the position, and this is the Z index. I'm going to put 50, just like in the example. Okay. Now it's on top. And I'm going to come back to that rule later on. I'm going to go now just for the after and just for the before. So if I double click on that again, I'm going to select my div Skew after. You can remove or leave the div dot. And I'm going to say Skew, and this one's going to be after. So in order to move that up, I need to come to my margin setting and say I want a margin top of minus 60 pixels, so it moves up. Good. It worked for this one, and it worked for this one as well. Now I need to do the same thing, or similar thing I should say, for my top one. So again, double click here, select my div Skew before, and I'm going to call that Skew before, create a selector, and do the opposite of what I just did. It's going to be at the bottom instead, to move that down. So it's going to be minus 60 there again, to move the content up. And again, we need to do that because when we rotate it, it's going to be a little bit of both. So let's go back to my content and Skew here. And now the magic will happen, but unfortunately, right now it's going to change. We'll be able to go and edit some content property, but the transform property is not there in Microthemer yet, so we'll have to put that manually. So the easiest way for now to do so, I'm going to click on Skew here and copy that CSS selector code, Control C, Command C on Mac. And I'm going to go here in my code editor view, click on that. I'm going to create a new manual rule, so paste, Control V, Command V. Then I need to put opening curly brace. Sorry. Enter. It's going to put the closing curly brace automatically. So what I need now is the transform property, colon, space, optionally. And I'm going to do rotate, parentheses, minus 3.2 deg for degree. And that's all. Now when you go in manually like that, you need to save to see the change. So I'm going to click on save here. And as you can see now, it has rotated. Okay. So now if I close that and if I come back to my background here to remove that red background, I'm going to click on the trash can. And now we're back with the default colors. I just noticed that the colors are not the same ones, so we'll need to change those colors here. But this one is alright. So these are the colors that are not right, in fact, so I can just come here and change those colors instead in that page. So I'm gonna put darker color here and refresh my page. And now we have that cool skew effect everywhere. So again, we need to have some spacing here because of the rotation of the other element. If I move that too high, it's going to be cut. As you can see even here, when we roll over here, when it turns, it's a little bit cut on the top here. So you might want it to put a little bit more padding or margin at the top to push it down. And sometimes, depending on the element, you might be able to push it a little bit way up, like for the header and footer especially. So if you want to do that, you can of course put a negative margin here and you'll be able to move that up a little bit. I did the same thing, by the way, for the footer. I've already added some padding at the top here to move that down because it will be cut if we don't do so. So again, the amount will depend on the amount of padding that you added in your CSS class. So hope you find out useful. Please comment so that it stays high and many people will be able to see it on Facebook. And of course, you can always register to my YouTube channel, and you can always come to my Microthemer website where you can register. You can download the free version. You can buy the pro version, of course, as well. And when you do so, you will be able to have access to my more than 30 training videos on Microthemer along with ProStyler. So thank you. Have a good day.